So recovery on this 2010 Ford Mustang. Just finished recovering out the refrigerant, and this customer will notice a difference. He was in a little front end collision. This has to be changed. This is a little tweaked, so it's getting changed. Anyway, he had a little leak down here, and his refrigerant, he was about 8 ounces low on his refrigerant. So when we're finished doing the whole paint body and everything changed, he's getting a new condenser. I'll fill it up. No, the customer will definitely know he has new air conditioning, because it'll cool like he doesn't remember. Because thing is, when you're a customer, the customer has a small leak and they slowly lose the refrigerant over a long period of time, and they don't notice every day that it's going down, the temperature is rising a little bit. They just feel cold air. They get the big surprise when you fill it all the way back up and fill it up properly. That when they start getting like 38 degrees air blowing out of that ash. And another problem is, I know it's really common in our industry when working to let loose the parts and just let them dangle, but you're letting them dangle on rubber hoses. And when rubber hoses get old, because of the heat and time and exposure to oxygen and everything like that, oxygen in our air breaks down rubber components, and this is what twists lines. And just by letting this condenser hang, or this transmission fluid heat exchanger hang like this, and what you did was you took the rubber hoses and you bent them over like this. Well, inside the linings get old and brittle, and when you twist them, you could cause little micro fractures on the inner lining of the air conditioning hoses, which causes really small minute leaks that you won't pick up now, you'll pick up later, and or can actually rupture and then just become a really fast loss later on by allowing components to lay down like this. This has been done in my grandfather's day, my dad's day. It's something my dad warned me about before I even started working on cars, when we were working in the home shop first before I moved out into the real shop. You know, he says, practice on our cars first, practice on neighbors' cars and the, you know, fellow church membership and stuff like that. And that's how I started. But let me tell you all the mistakes you can make before you make the mistakes, and he'd point things out to me. This was one of them. Just like ignition wires. When you have an old car and you had all the spark plug ignition wires just like this, one thing my dad told me, and I wasn't even 15 years old yet, he says, when you get a car in that's 10, 15 years old and you notice it might still have the same ignition wires on it, when you remove them, don't move the spark plug wires out of the way. Don't move them, don't fold them, just take them straight off. If you're not changing them because the customer doesn't want them, what happens is the carbon inside there and all the material of the wire has gotten baked from the exhaust heat and everything, become really brittle. So you do a tune-up, you change all the spark plugs, and then there's misfires because you've broken the inside of the carbon track inside the old spark plug wires just by bending them, because they got hard in place and they develop a memory and they become brittle, and by bending them they snap. So same thing with rubber hoses. When you take off heat exchangers and you just let them hang and the car is 5, 10, 15, 20 years old, you often fracture the rubber because it got a memory and it was baked into place, and now it's old and brittle, oxidized. It fails later on. And that's where I see many of my leaks coming from, say, a body shop, and then I'll see the same car later, a year later, and it'll be like across the street or down the block or on the other side of the city, the same car with my sticker on it, because I know it's been at a body shop, and I see it leaking at the rubber hoses because the front end was taken off and the exchangers were allowed to hang like this. So that's unfortunately one of the facts of life, and everybody does it, and you know, hard to teach an old dog new tricks. And then here we have a 2019 Honda Accord. So this one's a hybrid. It has the electric compressor and it has YF refrigerant. So this has the YF refrigerant in it. We have the electric compressor down there. Not much to go over on this one, other than when you're doing diagnosis, always look down and make sure the flaps are working, because sometimes after a front end collision, things aren't hooked up right, something's not quite right, and the flaps might be completely closed, and you may have a customer complain of overheating or poor cooling, and you'll find out all the flaps are closed on the car because a wire was left off, a sensor wasn't replaced, the gearing, the little levers inside here will get messed up and broken, and technician will throw them on, and they really don't hook up a scan tool and run it through the operation to actually manually command the air dampeners to go down and up and test them and everything like that. It's often overlooked, but always look out for that because I'm starting to see more of that. And we can inspect the air filter down here. Yep, cabin air filter looks pretty good, but looks can be deceiving. And always test your refrigerant. The Mustang had 4.1% air mixed in the refrigerant, so definitely the customer is going to have better AC when I'm finished with it after the new condenser. All right guys, I'll see you on the next one. I'm out of here, and go huff some AC refrigerant and have a high day. See you guys. Just joking.